Okay, guys. So we're gonna start. So this is my setup right now. I haven't dialed anything in, so we're gonna be doing, but we'll be able to get it pretty quick. I'm pretty sure on this. So the first thing that I want to talk about, and it's my setup that I have here. It's just this single light. That's all, and this figure that's right against it, and then a camera. There's no foreground light on this at all, right? So the first thing that I want to talk about is wrap. And wrap is the thing that, it's one of the things that I find is the most difficult thing to understand about lighting, but it is so critical to lighting. Ultimately, as we get through this, you're going to discover that wrap is essentially what controls contrast. So if I said to you, what controls contrast, what would you say? What? The what? Well, yeah, exactly. So I just sort of gave you the hint. So yeah, kind of like, yeah, it's the wrap, right? So anyway, but again, the concept of wrap is something that's really difficult, I think, for a lot of students to actually grasp. Not just students, anybody to grasp. So that's what we're going to sort of talk about today. So this is my setup. I'm going to go to Capture One right now. I'll show you how I'm going to dial this in, and then we'll sort of go from there and have a discussion about wrap, and there you go. Okay, so Capture One. There's no way to really meter this. I could use a spot meter, and I could meter the white of that. And if I wanted that white to be white, what would I meter it for? I want to shoot at f8. What should that reading be on that white thing if it's supposed to be white? Go for it. 245 to 250. I'm sorry? 245 to 250. Well, that's if looking at a digital part of it, but if I'm just metering it, be happy you guys didn't grow up with film. Well, actually, that's sad that you didn't grow up with film, because you would be disciplined a whole lot more than you are about this. You're lazy because it's easy just to read it off there. But remember, normal plus 3 stops is white. Normal minus 3 stops is black. So if I'm shooting an f8 and I want that to be white, it needs to be 3 stops brighter than f8. 1 is 11, 2 is 16, 3 is 22. I meter that at 22. I shoot it at 8. It's 3 stops overexposed, and it's white. But to your case now, I'm not going to whip out the spot meter because I'm set up, and it's just too easy to do this right now. So I'm going to hit this. What's that? Indeed. Try this again. I'm going to say this is awfully bright. Okay, so no, these are all great tricks that you should actually watch. If you can see this screen, hopefully that, yeah, we can get through, you'll be able to see all this part. So clearly this reads 255, so, but it's blown out. I mean, there's no question about that. Remember that overexposure, there's never going to be a 256, ever. It doesn't exist in this range. I could be 100,000 stops overexposed, and it's still going to read 255. So what I need to do is find where we just reached that 255. Does that sort of make sense? So a quick trick that you can do for this, because I can just start guessing now. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, well, at least 3 stops over, but again, that's just practice on my part. But you can go to your exposure slider and start to pull it down. So that's 3 stops down, and now I'm reading a 199. So this is telling me that maybe it's not 3 stops down. It's not an exact translation, but it's close. So this is saying about a stop and a half is getting me sort of close to that 245 range. When you do these tricks, you have to make sure that you reset the sliders, because if I then leave the slider where it is and then go in and actually change the power pack as well, I'm doubling up my correction. I don't want anything corrected in software. I always want my exposure to be the correct value. Why? What's so special about this 245 to 250? Yes?
Well, if you preserve detail in the highlights without like losing any, because if it goes over, then it's like you can't bring the detail back.
Exactly. That's part of it. Other things. So most of you guys have been trained with a sort of a film methodology, it's not a mythology, methodology, and that you should be exposing for what your image should look like, right? So if your image is going to be really bright, it should be really bright. And if your image is going to be dark and moody, you should be underexposed to make it dark and moody. That is the absolute worst thing you can do in digital. Digital, at this stage of the game, what I am doing is capturing data. And the closer that I can get to that 245 to 250 is my max exposure, is the most amount of data that I can gather about this image before I start to clip the image. And again, clipping is when you go over when basically you're so overexposed that information is no longer being read by your sensor because you're overexposed. Does that make sense? So that's why that sweet spot matters. If you underexpose, this is the reality. We'll talk about this in a later class. But if you underexpose your file, your digital file, by one stop, you lose half of your data. 2 stops under, you lose 3/4 of your data. How can you make an image if you do not have 3/4 of the data available to you? So instead, if you wanted that really dark, moody image, you shoot it really bright to collect the maximum amount of data that you can, and then in post, you process it down and make it dark and moody and looking underexposed. That's the trick to all of this, and you got to start thinking that way about this. So all of the lighting that you do should be pushing these limits. Now, your ratios matter, right? Your key light and your fill light still needs to be under. I mean, I'm not telling you that all of your lighting needs to be flat and bright. What I'm saying is, when you get the ratios set up correctly, you should create an exposure that gets as close to clipping as you can possibly get, because that is the maximum amount of data that you can get for your image. And with that rich data set, then you can really do a lot of things. You can do really serious things in post that you can't. If you're underexposed, you've only got 1/4 of the available data, it's all noise to begin with. You can throw all sorts of filters and tricks at it, but you might as well throw it all away and use your phone, because that's what your phone's doing. It's fixing all of this shit in post. Are we good on this part? Okay, so anyway, I'm going to reset my exposure part. It's saying to me, my guess is this is about a stop and 2/3 too hot, so I'm just going to knock it down. I'm at 800 watt seconds right now. Actually, I just took it down 2 stops. We'll see what happens. So down here at 2 stops, I'm still at 255 right here. But now I'm going to do another trick. Instead of actually doing my exposure adjustments in software, I'm going to do them with my camera. So what I'm simply going to do on my camera, and I can do it right from here, is I'm going to go down 1/3 of a stop and fire one. And come over here and read it, still 255. I'm going to go down another 1/3. And hit it. And now I'm at a 252. So what this is telling me is I am still 1/3 too hot. Right now I'm 2/3 under. What I'm looking for when I hit this thing perfect is that when I go down 1/3, I start to actually get tone again, right? It doesn't have to be in that 245 to 250 range, but it can't be 255. So this indicates to me that I need to lose 1 more 1/3 off of this. So then I'm going to go back to my F8. Again, F8 is my target. It's what I want to be shooting at. And I hit F8. And I get 255. But then when I go to 9, before when I was at 9, I was at 255. But now when I get here, I'm at a 251. So this is telling me that my F8 is as close as I can be and still have that thing hit 255. Does that make sense? So I have my maximum amount of data, but I have the least amount of clipping. The least amount of clipping ultimately results in flare. That's what it really is. Is that making sense, everybody, what's just gone on here? Okay, so that's that part about it. That's completely aside to the whole notion of wrap. Look at what's happening to this girl's face. This is wrap. So you can see, look at the stuff on the sides. You can see right here, look at my screen. Sometimes this is a little bit, I'll try to turn these lights off, but I think we won't be able to see anything in here, but you'll be able to see that better. So you see all of this stuff around her. Look at this, edge lights around here, all the way around her, stuff on this, on the sides. That is light that is wrapping around her. Does that make sense? Are we good on this part? Okay. So, right, you can see this light is actually wrapping around her. Okay, so I'm going to change this up really quickly. I'm just going to pull this camera back, and I'm going to slide her forward. Do you see any difference in these two?
Less wrap.
What?
Less wrap.
Much less wrap, right? Why?
Because you're moving the subject farther away from the light.
I am moving the subject further away from the light. So I need everybody to do this with me one at a time. Stand up. I need you to come stand right here with your nose barely touching the center of this. And then I want you to look to the right. And then I want you to look to the left and tell me if you have side lights. One at a time, really quick. Thanks for being the first. Really quick, guys. We'll do this a lot today. So again, this is trying to put this into your brain. Don't rush this. Be thinking to yourself, do you have side lights? Sure, you've got a front light, but do you have side lights with this close? Oh, here, this will be funny. Okay, that's the first. Go put your nose somewhere. Now I need everybody to do that exact same thing, but standing here. So stand right here and look to your right and tell me, and your left, and tell me if you have lights. Well, Liam? No. Okay, everybody good on this part so far? All right, seems pretty simple, relatively simple, right? Okay, I'm going to pause the video because we're going to do another setup here really quickly, so bear with me. So I'm jumping back into Capture One. Can anybody look at my screen and tell me what's wrong? Anybody spot any problem? That's exactly what happened. I'm shooting at f9, not what I wanted to be at. But again, I'm not really concerned about that for what I'm showing you in terms of illustrating wrap. At this stage of the game, it will matter. So I'm going to meter this and just see where we're at. Again, a really good trick, something to keep in mind. If there's a spare pocket wizard around, and you keep it in your pocket, then no matter where you are, you can fire stuff. So I am going to do a reading off of this just to see. Again, I don't trust this meter, but it'll get me close. And then, so this says 567. I'm going to add a third of a stop to this. Oh, this isn't my usual. Let's try that. $11.5. We'll see. All right, am I recording this again? Yeah. Okay, so this is where I'm at right now. So again, I'm going to hold down the space bar, double click anywhere you want to zoom into. I'm going to zoom into this spot right here. I'm going to use my white balance tool, click on the patch that's right next to the red, read the white patch now, and it's reading a 201, which is telling me that that's at least a stop, maybe a stop and a third underexposed. So again, there's no direct correlation to this. You can't say 100 is a stop and two. This is, I'm guessing. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That would be up a stop and a third. And I'm reading a 238. That's at least another stop. I mean, another third. So, am I good here? Yep. 245, right? So this is telling me where I'm at. So then I'm going to take my light meter, and I'm going to do a reading of where I'm at right now. And my light meter says 11.6. I need everybody to come in tight so that you can see this. So it now says 11.6, which is clearly wrong, right? I'm shooting at f8. So I just need to calibrate my meter so that my meter, when I'm shooting at when I'm shooting with 100 ISO with this camera, how do I need to set this meter? What ISO do I need to set this guy at to give me f8? So if you hold down the little, can you guys see this? Scooch around back, everybody. You need to be able to see this. So I'm going to press the ISO button to change that. Right now my ISO is 100. I'm going to change it. I'm going to start to go down. Sorry, until this camera still, it's recalculating my reading. And if I do this like here, so at an ISO of 32, this meter works perfectly as a meter for an ISO 100 and that camera. Does that make sense what I just did? This just makes your life so much faster because now you've got a meter that's accurate in what it'll read. It's because of the meters, but it's also because of the cameras. There's I'll show you if you remind me, a lab that tests every single sensor in every camera that's ever been made. And they rate how much they diverge from their purported ISOs and what so they go in and they'll set it at 100 ISO and then they'll really measure it. Canon is notoriously a stopover. 2/3 of a stopover, not a full stop. Notoriously. But anyway, so does that make sense what I just did? So now I can use this thing. But what I want to look at now is the bigger picture here. Oh, I never saw what my set looked like. So much for autofocus, right? I think this camera is designed only for, I think it's designed to be a camera for a computer. Yeah, oh well. So at any rate, to take a look at our setup really fast, just so that there'll be a record of this on the video. So again, what I've now got is a situation where I've got a really big softbox sitting really, very close to this image, close to my subject, and I've got an exposure now that's actually reading f8. So it's my perfect exposure. That part's all going fine for me now. However, I'm going to spin this. Instead of using that light, I'm actually going to use that one up in the corner. So if you guys can see that, yep. So I'm going to turn this off and move it. And I'm going to turn this one on in the back. All right, so everything else is off except for that light up in the corner whose modeling light's off. So you're never going to see it. So, oh. So when I set this thing up, I set this light up first. I haven't measured it out. I don't know how strong it is. I don't know how I need to adjust it. It's a full 2400 watt seconds right now because it's so far away. But then when I set this, the Allen Chrome up, I put it on the exact same line as this thing. So it's exactly the same distance left to right from my figure, but also height. Right? So the center of this lines up exactly with the center of that. And now my meter is set to hopefully give me something that will read. So it's reading 2.8. I want to shoot at 8. What do I need to do? That's a full 2400 watt seconds. Can I get any more power out of that? No, so what do I do? Oh, guys, if you aren't on this shit and I've already done it by now, you're in my studio. I'm just going to ask you to leave.
Move it closer.
That is an option, but that would defeat the whole purpose of the lecture. But no, but that is an option, so I'm not going to ask you to leave. So how much more power do I need in stops? I'm at 2.8. I want to be at 8. What's one more? 4. Next one. 5, 6, next one, 8. I need 3 stops more. Can I just add 3 stops of ISO and just move on? Don't have to move lights. Don't have to do anything. Yeah, there's that. So what's 3 stops more ISO from 100? What's one more? 200 and 2 more? 400 and 3 more? Well, not 3 more, but yeah, you guys get where this is going. Yeah, 800. And let's see what we get. So in this case, again, color balance, read the white patch right here, 252, that's telling me it's slightly hot. So I'm going to knock 1/3 off of my ISO and try it again. And 247, so this is exactly where I want to be, right? All right, I'm going to get rid of that other one that we got in there. So now I want to show you both of these images together. Oops. Both the exact same exposure. What's the difference?
Strong contrast, sharp shadow.
Absolutely. Isn't one contrasty and the other one flat?
Yeah.
Why?
Because the light source was bigger versus smaller, closer versus further.
Everybody come here really quick. You're going to get the whole nose treatment again. Hang on one second. I've got to record that part though. It's just too funny not to. Hang on. Mark this, that big axis where this thing was. Okay, so what I want everyone to do is to come stand here, right? There's a mark on the floor. Right here, just stand right here and ask yourself, obviously you have a front light, do you have side lights? Everybody, really quick. No, so it's not as extreme as the amount of wrap as before, but don't you feel like this light is hitting your side?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is wrapping you, right? Next.
This is more like a studio connection. Would it be better to like just keep the power box on like the little like clamp while it's still on like attached to this, or should I just take it off instead?
Oh, you mean that as a counterweight?
Yeah.
Oh, it's just
have it
safer
as
to
a
leave them
counterweight,
on.
or is it
Yeah,
just
we leave them
there?
on all the time.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just leave it on there and not take it off. Just
exactly.
okay.
Okay, does that make sense to everybody, what just happened? Right? Okay, now I need you to do it again. Looking at that light. So again, everybody over here, one more time. I'm beating this shit into your head if I can, right? Look at that light and tell me to have any lights coming in from the side. Okay, so again, if we go back and we look at our two images, here, sorry, not that one. Here, what you can see is what is giving us that shadow contrast is the lack of wrap. Now you guys know this instinctively, but you never think of it as a single light situation. You guys do standard lighting 101 in your first lighting class, Rembrandt lighting, key light and fill, right? The fill was meant to actually give you wrap. That's what it's doing. It's a side light that's filling in those shadows. But you can have a large enough single light source that actually does that gives you wrap, right? But the important thing is that it's not always about making shit flat. This is also about giving you contrast. How do you get something really contrasty? How do you emulate direct sunlight? That's actually the big issue in all of this. Is this making sense? Don't worry, we've still got quite a bit to go here, so hold on. So,
Just real quick.
yes.
Like, so For the shadow and contrast, that's caused by like there being like we tested right now like it not wrapping and causing those shadows.
Exactly. So without wrap, you end up with shadows, you end up with contrast. With wrap, you don't have contrast, you don't have shadows. Okay. So the first rule of lighting, and I need everybody to write this down, but I'm also going to put it on the board. Versus rules of lighting. Rule number 1, wrap controls contrast. We good on this part? Okay. One more, everybody up there, one last time. Hang on one second. All right, I need everybody over here. I'm actually going to make this easier on everybody by putting a modeling light on. So this is what I need everyone to do. I need everyone to put your feet right here, close one eye, and then you probably need to move down. You might need to move around a little bit like this. What you're trying to do is line this reflector up with the Elechrome that's in the back behind. Does that make sense? And then I want you to tell me which one of them is bigger. Close one eye. Which one's bigger? So the one in front of you is bigger?
Yeah, because it's covering the back.
Well, if they're the same size, it would be covering it, wouldn't it? Well, then go a little bit to the side and come back to make sure that it's like, is it the same size or is it bigger or smaller or really damn close?
I know the one in the back is bigger.
Oh, the one in the back, wait, you know it's bigger?
Yeah.
Well, we all know that. I'm asking you right now, when you look at this, which one is bigger?
They're about the same size.
Probably, yeah. Okay, next.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with it.
Oh, wow, yeah, they're the same.
They're not different sizes.
Okay, so everybody said they're about the same. You guys have got to be out of your mind. That Elinchrom is a good 6 feet across, if not more, and that little reflector is 7 inches, but you're all telling me it's the same size? I got a bridge for you. No. So the reason this matters is our next trick on this here, on the rules of lighting, is wrap is controlled. Ooh, that's a Sharpie. Oh, shit. Say what? What will wipe it off? What? Oh, like a hand sanitizer? Yeah, okay, hang on. I'm going to pause this because I'm afraid that's only going to sink in worse. So hang on 1 second.
This is the real lesson here.
Okay. Rewind. Okay, so rule number 2 is wrap is controlled by size. And we saw that. Again, the light that was over at the very top, the really small one that was in the back, is considerably smaller to the one that was in the front. I mean, the one that was front is gigantic, and that's why we get those side lights are coming in. That's what gives us wrap. But when we go to something that's a single little head that's all the way back here, there is no wrap anymore. So it's because that thing is so big relative to that. Does that make sense? Are we good on this part? So imagine, what if I had a light back here that was the size of this room? Wouldn't you have wrap? You would, right? So again, it's all relatively speaking, right? However, the thing that has just complicated this is size is controlled by modifier plus distance. And you guys just saw that as well. This modifier here is extremely big, that one's extremely small, but if you get that one close enough to you, it becomes the same size as this one that's really far away. Is this seeming to begin to like connect together? Is this beginning to make some sense? So let's find out if that's actually true. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set these both up, and we're going to shoot this figure. I'm going to do it first off with the big Elinchrom, and then I'm going to do it with this guy right here. If they're balanced exposures, we'll see which one of these has more or less or the same contrast. Would that make sense? So you guys need to move just in the middle, only because I can't have you blocking that light. Can somebody turn that light and turn the light on, turn the radio on, and take it up to a full 20, take it up to full power, please. Okay. So right now my meter is telling me, well, it's saying 2.9. We'll just call that 2.8. Again, same thing, ISO 32 on this one, ISO 100 on my camera. So what do I need to do to, oh, hang on, this is also on. Actually, it's just the modeling light, but we'll make sure. Yeah, 289. What do I need to get to 8? How many stops difference? Count it off. Right now, basically 2.8. What's one down? Come on, folks. Again, you got to learn this shit. 4, 5, 6, 8, 3 stops down. So again, pretty much the way I'm set up in Capture One right now, because it was a 3 stop on that single-headed light that was really far away as well. So I'm going to take it back to an 800, which is the true 3 stops. And this would just be a random some kind of check, because I have moved my camera and it's not set up. So. You know, it's funny though. I started like shit like this. Like I don't even see what. Yeah, like this right here. Like these just random pictures. Whatever. I actually started collecting them because I think some of them were like incredibly beautiful. So, but it's like pictures of the floor and the ceiling and just weird shit, right? That you have no rhyme or reason to how it was framed or any of that. But they just look cool. So anyway, for what it's worth. Say what?
There's some dramatic metaphor you can make from that.
Oh, absolutely true. Okay. That's a little too side. All right, so color balance on that, 254. So again, I think my meter, I think I would change that. It seems like it's still that one, consistently now, that 1/3 of a stop off. It shouldn't be. It did? I think you're.
Oh, it's just my bad. It
Yeah,
looks
that's okay.
like it
That's
was.
okay. So 242 here. Yeah, I'm gonna split. No, I can't move that guy. So let's try this instead. I'm gonna go back to my 8. I'm gonna go back to an 800 ISO. And then I'm going to turn 1/3 off of this and see if I get any different. So 250, so good enough for government work, right? All right, so this is the one that is with Ellen Chrome in the back. So then, Liam, can you just turn all of that off? So this is my setup now.
Is that modifier not burned?
Is what? What do you mean not burned?
Right that close to the light?
Oh, yeah, no, it's okay. Yeah, I've had that one for years here. Ooh, I feel like that's going to be spanky. 16.7, what do I do? How much do I need to go off? So one stop would be 11.7, 2 stops would be 8.7, so 2 2/3 stops. What does that say?
8. Wait. Oh, yeah,
8.
you do this kind of shit, people are just like, what, we don't have to try 1,000 exposures here to try to get there? No. Anyway, but I have to return my ISO to 100 now and knock one off. Now we have a different light, and so I need to color balance for it. And read my white patch over here. 254, so it's probably a third of a stop too hot. I keep getting consistently on that meter. So I think I would probably change my meter to a 50 ISO as my calibration, because this keeps coming up about that much off, so we'll see. Yep, 248. So I'm going to get rid of the one in the middle. And I'm going to take a look at these two together. So when you bring up two images in Capture One, if you want to control them together at the same time, again, the spacebar will give you the hand to move them, but the Shift key will connect them. So I can hold down my Shift key in the spacebar, and I can move them both around, as opposed to without the Shift key, just one moves around. But also, if you hold down the Shift key in the spacebar and you double click, they both will zoom out, or they will both zoom in. So it's just a quick way to navigate and get around. So when you look at these, I'm going to say to you that these are the exact same contrast. Look at the shape of the shadow. It's identical. But then you would say, well, but Verser, there's no one of them's really dark and the other one's not dark. What's up with that?
There's no wrap for one of them.
There's no wrap in either one of these. They do, but they're not the same. Why? I need everybody to come stand over here with me as a group. We're all going to go right here, turn around and look at that light. You can crowd in, you can come over here as well. How many lights do we have in this set?
No, well, one plus the floor, I guess, that's bouncing off.
How many lights? So that big white thing that's on the floor, you don't think that's a light? The white reflection, look at the shadows is throwing off the ceiling. That's a much weaker light than the one down on the floor, but these are all lights. This is this giant fucking thing of light that's happening. I've got a source here, but this is all acting like a reflector. I've got so much bounce coming up this floor, it's ridiculous. That is what's filling those shadows in. That's what's lightening them up. That is becoming its wrap, for lack of a better way of putting it. That's why if you take a look at this thing that I've got up here, the reason I put cinefoil around that's black cinefoil around a black reflector. It's to keep the wrap away. So you'll see here, that one, when I turn it on, I'm gonna kill this light right here. This is an enormous fill. It goes all the way from here, all the way to that set. So it's this entire floor is happening from here. But this one, that doesn't start till here. This is where it starts to fill in right here. So how would I fix this? How would I get the same contrast? Now that I've told you it's the same contrast, am I a liar? Oh, come on, I've told you every single class I've ever been in, I'm a liar. That's what I do for a living. I'm doing my damnedest to teach each and every one of you how to lie really good, because that's successful photography. Sorry. At least in the commercial world it is, right? So, how would you fix this?
Flag it off.
Yeah. Take down these curtains, cover the floor with them. That'd be one way.
Could you flag off around the subject?
You can try, but it gets really tricky. It starts to get, you have to be so close to the subject. Usually so the question was, couldn't you just gobo off at the subject? The tricky part is that you've got to be so close to it, you actually, your gobos and stuff actually get into your shot. And that kind of defeats it. But yeah, but again, kill the floor. That's why these things are all painted black. That's why studios are all painted black.
Could you also use a grid to
Oh,
redirect the light?
I could, no, absolutely. That's the same trick that we were using last week when we were doing a lot of our trying to separate the background, foreground from those colors, is that a big grid. Can you get a grid for this thing?
Probably.
Oh, totally. Yeah. No, they totally have them. They're all usually made out of cloth. You can DIY these things. You can actually get, you know, the grates that they have in lighting fixtures that look like this little squares? You get those and you paint them black, you glue them together, you cut them in that circle, and you put it in front of there, and there you go. But yeah, no, that would be a great idea, because that's what the spot is actually doing. So but that brings up a great point. Are spot grids more contrasty or not? They're not more contrasty, they're just narrower beam, but the contrast, as long as the size is the same, the contrast will be the same. Does that make sense?
So regardless of anything that you use, like,
Well, no, I mean, you just saw when I had this Elechrome really close to here, I had no shadow. I've got the same exact modifier back there, and look at the shadow. So you can make anything, again, because what we're now is that the size is controlled by the modifier, but also by distance, right? And again, this is a concept that people struggle with. But let me ask you something right now. If we went outside right now, it's a pretty sunny day, and we all would prefer to be outside. How big is the sun? Can you cover the sun with your hand? Sure, of course you can. You can go like this, and will not see the sun at all, right? Is the sun bigger than your hand?
yes.
Considerably bigger, right? But when you get the sun 93 million miles away, which is about how far it is away, and your hand 2 inches from your eyeball, your hand is bigger than the sun.
Kind of like what we did with this light in the
Exactly what we did, and that's why. So again, if we go back over to the board one last time for the yeah, exactly. Oops. So if we put all of these pieces together, in the end, contrast is controlled by, I've already got this here, by size. Does this make sense to everyone? It's the final game in all of this. If you need a contrastier light, it needs to be smaller. If you need a softer light, it needs to be larger. You can do it using a modifier. You can use it doing distance. You can do it using both. But there's a catch. I'm going to pause our recording for just a second, because I've got to get a Photoshop launched, and I don't want you to wait through all of that. Okay, inverse square law. I'm going to demo this up here just so you can see it here. So can everybody see this screen that's up here? Again, it's on the video recording. You'll see it here, but I just sort of want to point this part out. Let me move this over just a little bit. Okay, so this thing that's at S is just, it's a point of light. That's all it is. So you can think of it as like, light is leaving it in every single direction, right? So it's just floating in the air, but it's a light. But there's no top, light is going in every single direction. Does that make sense to what we're talking about here? Okay, So if we take a small slice of it, let's just say we're going to take this one square right here. The letter R just stands for the distance from the original light source. So that's all R is about. So we can just say, for instance, it's 1 foot, right? So R is 1 foot away from our light source. And you can see that at that point, all of the light that's contained within this one little square, it's represented by this letter A here, all of the light that's actually going through this, every single thing that we can see here, every single bit of it is going through this space in A right here. Does that make sense what the illustration is? Okay, the thing you need to know about light is energy, and energy never dies. So there's light coming from the edge of the universe, which is billions and billions, trillions of miles away from us, that will eventually reach us. The light doesn't diminish at all when it reaches us. It's got the same energy as had it when it was initiated, when it left. But what happens is that in a scenario like this, as you get further away from the source, the light spreads out in a further direction. So you don't lose light, it's just that the same amount of light that passed through here at R1, that same amount of light is now passing through an area considerably larger, 4 times larger. Now again, the light itself is not losing any energy, but as it leaves, it just continues to spread further and further and further and further and further out. So at any given point, there's less light in this 4 square right here than there was in this original one. Does that make sense? Right? And then if we go out to 3 feet, so again, I'm just going to say R is 1 foot, R2R is 2 feet, 3R is 3 feet. By the time you get out to 3 feet, you can see it's even a larger area. So it's the same exact amount of energy that's going through this one here at R1, but it's spread out over a much bigger area. So you're not losing energy, it's spread more out. So there's less light that's actually hitting something that would be the size of R1 originally. Does that make sense? Questions about this? Okay, well this matters to us. So this is called the inverse square law. Has everybody shot pictures of this with your phone or written it down or whatever you're going to do? All right, so I'm going to erase this. If I knew where I'd put the eraser. Right here. So you can calculate the light loss. Or it's not really a light loss, it's an exposure loss is what it really is. So they call this the inverse square law, and this is why. If we take, here, I'm going to actually put this back on so you can see the calculation. So what we had originally was R, we were saying R was 1 foot, right? So we're going to take 1 foot and we're going to put that over 2R, which we said was 2 feet, right? You guys remember that part? Okay, so 2R. So then what you do is you square these. All that means is that you multiply them by themselves. So if I do this times, again, another half, 1 times 1 equals 1, 2 times 2 equals 4. And that's exactly what we saw. When you go double the distance, you get 1/4 of the energy goes through it in that same amount of space. So your light loss is 1/4. I mean, you've knocked it down to 1/4 of what it was. How much is that in stops? What's 1 stop?
Which one?
Doesn't matter. So 1 stop down, here. We'll go back to this. So if I've got F8 is my normal exposure, And I have, they call these things filter factors. That's where this part actually comes from. But again, it's all in f-stops. So if I've got 1/4 of the light, if I go minus 1 stop, isn't that minus 1/2 the light? And if I go minus 2 stops, isn't that minus 1/4? It's not I'm subtracting a quarter. I've got 1/4 of the light. It's a 2-stop loss. A 1-stop loss is half the power. A 2-stop loss is 1/4 the power. Does that make sense? What's going on? If I go to, so again, I'm going to go to, we're going to do another one. If I go to, well, here. If I go to, again, we had that 1/3. This is why they call it the inverse. You're flipping this. So again, 1 times 1 is 1, 3 times 3 is 9. So I've got a filter factor of 9. I've lost, again, how do I calculate this? Well, if I lose 1 stop, it equals half. If I lose 2 stops, it equals 1/4. If I lose 3 stops, that equals 1/8. And if I lose 4 stops, it equals 1/16. So again, 1 stop loss, I have half the power. 2 stops loss, 1/4 of the power. 3 stops loss, 1/8 of the power. 4 stops loss, 1/16 of a power. This is 1/9 of the power. So it's somewhere right here in between this 1/8 and the 1/16 right in here. So realistically, it's probably about, it's 3 stop loss, 3 stop loss plus. It's like probably another 1/10 or 2 of a stop that's actually lost. Does that make sense what's going on? Okay, so this actually has a profound impact on our last group of talking about lighting. So we reached the point where these 2 lights are balanced. They are the same, right? It's just contrast. They have the same contrast except for the fill on the floor, right? But now we need to deal with the last of the laws of light, and it is fall off. And this is what controls it. So, again, yes?
I guess I'm just a little confused because I feel like, I guess when I think about like losing stops, it's like you keep having it. So, well, I guess that would be. So like, because it goes like 2, 4, 8, 16.
Yeah, that's all halves, right? What's half of a half?
Like half of a half?
Yeah. Okay, no, see, this is the thing people fuck up all the time. I got 50 cents, right? Isn't that a half a dollar? Yeah. If you wanted half of it, what would it be?
25 cents.
No, it would be 1/4.
Oh, well, yeah, 1/4.
Right? How many quarters in a dollar?
4.
4 of them, right? So if I had $1 and you wanted half of it, it would be?
50 cents.
Right, and if I wanted half of that again? Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Oh, okay. So that's what you're doing. And then also, just real quick for when you did the fraction part, so I guess because like 3 times 3 is 9, so that would just be 3 stops, not 9?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yes.
Wasn't this power output much higher than now?
It is, but again,
That loss that it would be traveling?
that's right where we're heading. Let's see how it works out. Okay, so I'm going to actually start with this one because it's already set up. I take it back. I'm going to start with that guy. Can you, turn that guy on? So, I'm sorry?
So you lose a stop every time you double the distance, basically?
No, it's trickier than that. You're going to see right now. And then we'll talk about, because this is very easy math to figure out. I'm going to show you the more, this gets far more difficult. Yeah. All right, so I've just got my Big Ellen Chrome back on. Here, just to sort of give everybody an idea of what's going on. So Big Ellen Chrome back on, shooting this figure right here with no background. This background is pretty far away. So it's basically what I've got happening. And what happened? Yeah, it's dark, right? Why? I didn't change my ISO, remember? That was our trick. So what was our ISO that I was shooting that with?
800, 640.
It was actually 800 minus the third, right? So 640. To find out, you can actually come back here and look at this one right here. This is the one that it is. And you can see the ISO reads right underneath this, 640. So I'm going to take this back to a 640 and knock another one off. And zoom in really quick. And do a white balance. And I'm reading 238, so it's a little under, but I'm also not in focus. Hang on one sec. Uh, 239, so I actually am going to add that. Oh, remember I took the third off of this when I was trying to balance. So I'm going to put it back on. .245, so my exposure here is correct. Sorry, that actually just reset my color balance.
That would be at 24.
Yeah, but again, it's all relative. That part doesn't matter. Okay, so can you kill that light? So now I'm going to go back to my smaller setup, my tighter setup. Back to my 100 ISO. And I'm going to read white balance and read this, 250. Those are both the same exposure. You notice anything different? Like a lot different, right? Why?
Didn't you underexpose like these snaps? Didn't you turn the background like a...
I'm sorry, what?
Didn't you like underexpose like these snaps?
I'm just exposing this thing. All I've done is that light is the same size as that light. We already know that. They're the same size. They're the same contrast. What's the difference here? The distance. And the distance has everything to do with fall off, and the fall off is explained by the inverse square law. So we need to look at how this actually works. So I'm going to go back to the board. We're going to try to measure these things off roughly so that I can do the math. Can somebody whip out a calculator for me, please? All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we need to figure out how far the figure is from the background. How much distance is between these two? So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 25 feet. Isn't this 3 feet? 3 times 8, 24, 25 feet. It's all about speed. So my subject right here This is top down, looking down. And hang on. I need to trade cameras. And here's my wall right here. So the distance from these two is 25 feet. And now I need to figure out the distance from my close head. It's right here. And then I need to know the distance from the big one here. So the distance from the close head to this guy is 1, 2, 3, 4, we'll call it 5. I'm trying to keep the math easy. Five feet. And then the distance from this big boy to my subject, you're good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13, 14, 15. So 15 steps, 45 feet. So then if I want to do the ratio of this to see what my real fall off is, right? I'm going to do the calculation of the first one. So this head is 5 feet away. So I've got 5 over, and then it's the 5 feet plus the 25 here. This head is 30 feet away from this background wall. Does that make sense, everyone? All right, who has their calculator out? I need 5 times 5 is 25. So again, this all gets squared. So again, this is going to be times 5 over 30. So 5 times 5 is 25. What is 30 times 30? No, 600? Yeah, so 30, 30, 0, 0, 600. 900. Oh, what am I talking about? 900. Did you say 900 and I said wrong? See, I'm a liar. I'm so sorry. This has been like a long ass week and it's not over yet. Anyway, 900. Okay, I need to reduce this, the fractions part on here. I need to get it down to its lowest base. Who in here can reduce fractions? Well, I can't. Wait, so we can do this. 5 into 25 is 5 into 25 is 5. And then if we divide 900 by 5, what is it? No, go ahead.
I was going to say it's 1 over 36.
It's 1 over 36?
You just divide
Oh, no, that's fine. That's all I need to know. So it's 1 over 36?
Yeah.
Okay, so 1 over 36. Yeah. Okay, fine. So what this is telling me is in this situation right here, my lighting setup right here, that if this is balanced at normal, this is my exposure here is normal, I'm getting 1/36 of the light on this background. So again, how many stops loss is that? So 1 stop loss. So these are stops losing right here. Loss stops. 1 is half power, 2 is a quarter, 3 is an eighth, 4 is a 16th, 5 is a 32nd, and 6 is 64. So this 1/36 is right about here. I've got a 5 stop loss here. And that's why that background is dark. Does this make sense, everybody, what's going on? I'm going to show you an extreme version in just a second, but I want to do this other guy, the math on this other guy first. Okay, does that make everybody comfortable with this part so far? So again, This figure is normally exposed. We can actually measure this out. Why don't I just say we're losing 5 stops? Yeah, let's see if that's true. I've really got to amp up my ISO, so, well, we'll see, maybe not. So I just went, somebody write this down, 1.4, that's what I'm metering on the background, and I'm metering 8 there. I put shit down everywhere. Eraser, anyone? Oh, C. So right now I'm metering my figure, my subject right here is metering, my subject was metering at F8. My background is reading at 1.4. Let's count that down. What's one sub down from F8? 5, 6, next, 4, next, 2, next. I know, brilliant, right? All right, let's see how well we do with this other one. Okay. So on my next one, we're going to calculate it again. So I am 45 feet to my subject, so 45, we'll go over this. And then it's added, this 25 feet is added to that, so that takes me to 70. So I'm 45 feet from this light to the subject, but the subject is another 25 feet to the wall, so I'm just adding the 25 to the 45 and I get 70. So this is my ratio now. I'm going to try to reduce this first, just to make the math a little bit easier, although I take that back, I'm not going to do that. You have actually got this already done, I know that.
It would be, let's see, what, 9/14?
Oh, sure. But no, you need to square it. So wait, no, I'll do your 9/14. So you're right, 5 in there is, so is it 9/14? Is that how this reduces? Yeah. Okay, then we need to square that. So 9 squared is 81. What's 14 squared? 196. And then can you reduce that back to its fraction? Well, no, I mean, it's really close right here. If we doubled this 80, whatever, we get to like, well, here. Let's make, I'm going to just cheat, make it 80/96. And then those cut in half would be 40 over 98. And then divide that again, 20/49. So we're just going to call this 20/50, basically 2/5. So my light fall off in this scenario right here is 2/5. Does that make sense, everyone? Okay, it's easier again to think about this in stops, but we'll actually try to get this closer to here. I'm actually going to just cheat for the math here and just make this 1/3. So at a 1/3 loss, again, one stop loss equals a half. 2 stop equals a quarter. This third falls right somewhere in between here. Actually, it's not even there. It falls above this. It's up here. It's less than a full stop loss. Yes?
This might sound dumb, but if it's less than one stop, would you just not stop it at all to get 1/3?
I'm sorry, what?
This might sound dumb.
No.
If it's less than one stop, would you just not stop it at all to get 1/3?
Oh, no, I accept the fall off for what it is. But everything has to be exposed, right? It's just understanding what's going on here. So, guys, hang on. Let's just see if this is true. Let's see if this actually really works out this way. I'll see what my real fall off is because I cheated a little bit on that. So we'll see what the real deal is. Liam, can you turn that guy back on? F8, 5, 6, one stop loss. So this explains this difference. On this image right here, this is the big Ellenchrome that's way far back. I've got a one stop loss from my figure to the background. But as I get closer, because of the inverse square law, the light fall off from this one that was really close here is a 5-stop fall off. This is going to get even more severe. So I'm going, but the thing about this is that the reason I've got this set up is they are exactly the same size. They have exactly the same contrast. The only thing that's shifting here is the distance. And that is what controls fall off. So why does this even matter? Why do you guys care? Well, I'm going to show you. We're going to take a break in just a second, and I'm going to set something up to show you why. But every single one of you, if this is your set right here, every single one of you has your fucking light right here. And then you end up with a 3-stop fall off to the other side, and it looks like student lighting in a photo studio with students who don't have any idea what they're doing. If you take that same light and you bring it over here, it's real light. It emulates daylight, the thing that we are the most familiar with and comfortable with seeing. Does this make sense? All right, so I'm going to show you one last thing on this really quickly. It's the last of the laws. So you need to add this to the other 4 that we had. Son of a... There was 4, right? Or was there 5? It was 4. So this is the 5th law. The 5th law is distance controls C-O-N-T-R-O-L-L-S, fall off. So how can I explain this to you in a way that would actually mean something? So anybody in this room ever heard of Annie Leibovitz? Pretty famous photographer, right? Does a lot of stuff. How many are familiar with the Vanity Fair cover of all the Hollywood stars? Like, it's like 15 or 20 people, all the Hollywood stars, you know, the up-and-comers and all that kind of stuff, right? Or other work of hers that it's like big groups of people, right? So here's the Anna Leibovitz problem, the challenge. So I'm going to do her 15 people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14. So again, I'm looking straight down on top of this. Here's Annie with her little camera right here. And I'll even draw her. So does that make sense what we've got going on here, right? And so she's really known, I mean, the light that I'm most familiar with of hers, I mean, it's really classic. It's that sort of really Rembrandt, you know, side light with a nice little fill on the other side. I mean, that's pretty much what she does, right? It's not the only thing that she does, but it dominates her work, right? So, okay, this is great. So I'm going to just take a big old Ellenchrome and I'm going to put it right here, and I'm good to go, right? What's the problem with this? Fall off. Exactly, right? So if I expose this person right here, these 2 right here is normal, these people down here are going to be normal minus 4 or 5 stops. Completely underexposed, unusable. So then other people say, oh, well then, you know, you just need to actually continue this process all the way along. And it's like, Oh, okay, fine. So I'm going to put another one here, and another one here, and another one here, and another one here. Oh, that's a great idea. Is that Rembrandt lighting? No, that's flat shit ugly lighting. You can't make the millions that she makes. Do you know she actually, you know the story about her work? The loan she took out on her work? Oh, Susan Sontag, who was her wife, or they were partners, I think they were married, was really sick, and for some reason Annie needed to buy this house. She needed $20 million. And she put up her entire collection of photography, all the rights in perpetuity, as the collateral for the loan, and a year goes by and they call the loan. And it wasn't just the work that she had done, it was actually the work that she was still going to do. She lost it all. Yeah, no, tragic, right? Anyway, this unacceptable. So what's my option? Yes, that's exactly right. To eliminate the fall off, I need distance. So instead, I'm going to put a light down here. Correct? So now I've got much less of a chance of fall off. Again, it's the ratio from here to here and here to there is much less than the ratio from here to there. Does that make sense? Okay, so I am going to put this light back here, but what's the consequence of that? What? Well, of course it can reach it. What? So when I move this light back there, what happened? Is my light bigger or smaller? As I move it away, it is smaller. So does that mean it's more contrasty or less? It is more contrasty because I've eliminated the wrap. Again, wrap controls, it's all controlled by size. When I move that away, distance and the modifier both. I haven't changed the modifier, but the distance makes it smaller, like the sun up in the sky. It's really, really, really small, really contrasty. Does that make sense? So she doesn't want it really contrasty. What can she do? Do what? Exactly. So what she does instead of this is she does this. Absolutely. Why not? How big a light can you get?
Bigger than that.
Oh, do they make them bigger than this? Everybody come with me really quick. Just kind of stand in this space like right here. Yeah, good enough, right? So, it would be better if this was a white wall. It's not a white wall, so I would cover this in white seamless just to make my life easier. And again, if I'm Annie Leibovitz, I've got a crew of assistants that are in there before this job getting all of my lighting set up anyway, so it wouldn't be a problem. So anyway, this all becomes white. It's just easier. And then I've got 1, 2, 3 head, 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 1, 2, 3 head. Why not? This is my light. What's stopping you? You can build walls out of foam core, stack them up high, 15 of them wide, throw 1,000 heads in there. It's just money. Is this making sense? The rules don't change just because of the scale. It just means you have to go bigger. All right, I have got 10 minutes of roughly a little bit, 10 minutes of 3. Let's do a hard 10, guys. Be back at 3. We've got some other stuff to look at. Yeah. All right. So in this scenario, we're going to leverage a number of those sort of things that we've actually just looked at. I'm going to show you a couple strategies that I think you should think of that would be important to you to think about, blah, 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 all the other, everything else. So Liam's been very kind and agreed to model for me. Uh, 11.4, I want to be at 8. What do I do? (11.4), I want to be at 8. One stop down would be 8.4, and another third would be 8, right? Let's see if that works. What's that read?
8.
Like fucking every time, right? I can't stress how important this shit is. You do this stuff, people are, okay, I want her tomorrow. I want her, fuck my first assistant, he's losing his job. She's cuter and I'm gonna go with her. Do you know your stuff? That's what it's about. So, okay, so I told, you guys know what hall pass is? Do you know what hall pass is? So hall pass is that if you're in a relationship with somebody, I've been married for a long time. And so my wife says to me one day, so who would be your hall pass? I'm going to pause this recording. Anyway, back to our setup here. So I do have this metered in now, hopefully correctly. So we're just going to take a look at this on, shoot a frame of this and see what we get. And my connection to my camera's been lost, so let me just restart it. And I'm there. So again, I was metering at f8, 100 ISO, although I've changed this to a 50 ISO, so this thing is about a stop off, not a stop and a third. I hope. We'll see. Okay, so, it would help if I framed this thing up, wouldn't it? All right, so I'm going to zip in on this. Liam, can you twist that card just a little bit that way? That way. Yeah, exactly, good. It still does not look like that's in focus, but I may actually have to go old school and start focusing using my eyes. Who knew? You can still get card reading. So 242, so I'm going to pop this up a third. Actually, I'm not, yeah, I'm going to bring it up a third. See if my eyes are any better than the camera. Yeah, considerably. 249, so I would call this perfect exposure. Part of the reason I asked Liam to do this was because of his white shirt. So I'm going to go up to Capture One, down to my settings, and in my settings, check my exposure warning part, because a lot of times I will use exposure warning. I will leave it at 255 to make sure that I'm actually getting blown out white. But in a case like this, when it's really more about the clothes, what he's wearing, that kind of stuff, I'm going to set that at 250 so that I can see, am I overexposing him? I've got a good reading on the card. I can spot that. But what about him? I also would, my shadow warning at 15 is fine. So again, and then I'll throw my warning on here really quickly, and you can see his shirt has completely blown out. So his shirt then becomes the white card, not the white card. Does that make sense? Because the white card, I'm never going to shoot with that. That's not going to be my subject, right? It's this shirt, right? I mean, that's it. So I'm going to pull that third of a stop back off. And then I'm just going to hover over this. So one of the things you need to know about this, if we take a look at this, you can see that in here, my RGB readings are, let me refocus that so you can actually read it. I've got 248 in the red channel, 246 in the green channel, 250 in the blue channel. That's what's actually causing a problem here. 247 in this, and I'm hovering over this area right in here. So the reason this is actually nuking this out or giving me this warning, something is, one of the channels in here, and I'm sure it's the red channel, is actually somewhere in here hitting over that 250. So that's where the problem in this actually comes in. I feel like I'm close enough here. I'm not going to really worry about that part, and I'm going to say OK to this. Another quick thing that you can do to check exposure, everyone should write this down, is this only happens with Caucasian skin. It's just there's enough consistency in Caucasian skin that you don't run into problems with this. African American skin is a real challenge because it can be, you can run the gamut from extremely light to extremely dark. So there's no standard that's going to function there. The same thing would happen with a lot of Asian skin as well. So anyway, it does work with Caucasian skin. It's not a guarantee, but it's a place that you'll see a bunch of assistants will actually do this, or digital text will look this. You actually want to find a place on that Caucasian skin that is relatively bright. You're looking for highlights, like this area that's right above the top of his forehead right here. That would be an area that I would actually look at. You could also possibly somewhere down on his neck. It's a little bit less so, but pretty much close. Anyway, what you're looking for as an exposure check is a red value. It's red channel only between 225 and 245. Now for me in fashion, my standard is about a 235 in the red channel, again, in a highlight on Caucasian skin. So if I look at this on Liam, it's giving me a reading and I'm getting this 243, 244. That is right at my max. So between the shirt that's still blowing out a little bit and the Caucasian skin reading, I'm feeling like I'm still a third of a stop over. So I'm going to knock another third of a stop off on this. And see what we get. Card, please. Thanks.
Wait, just to make sure, you said for the red value to be between 225 and 245.
Yes.
And then what did you say? What value did you say you use
I'm sorry, what?
for your fashion?
Oh, yeah, so for me, I typically put my skin tone, that number right in the middle at 235. Yeah, it's a little bit hot. So 225 would be considered like a normal exposure. 235 is it's a little bit hotter. 245, so if you have somebody that you're supposed to be shooting beauty on, I used to do this all the time, somebody that you're supposed to be shooting beauty on and they don't have the best skin in the world, you want to blow it out. That's when you set it at 245. But at any rate, so I'm actually looking at the highlight on his forehead right now, and now I'm at a well, again, this is my fashion normal. I'm at a 236 here. If I actually then throw on the warning and zip back out, I'm going to bring both of these up. These are the last two. So this was the one before it, and this is where I'm at right now. And this would be probably considered a much safer exposure in here. But again, it's another piece of information. Where this really comes into play is in those situations where it's really hard to get a card in correctly. Does that sort of make sense? So you can sort of try to judge on it based on the card, but then you go to tricks like this. And so that's just, again, you're looking for confirmation or any other source. So at any rate, this is where I'm going to put this part, and you can actually see in this case right now, it's a fairly good side light on this part, but what I do have going on here is that I'm actually leveraging the fact that this is not only lighting Liam, but it's also lighting the background, right? So I need everybody to come over here really quickly and take a look at this. So everybody crowd over here. So if you stand here and look, this thing is like pointing right at him. I'll wait for everybody to get over here. So it is pointing directly at him, right? He's casting a shadow on this background. So a couple things. If I want to light up this other side over here a little bit more, we can, what they call it, feathering. I can actually just do this. So what I'm doing now is I am actually shooting all the way over here. So in this case, I've got less light that's actually hitting him, but considerably more light's hitting here. Let's see how it looks. And right off the bat, well, we'll see. We'll check a look and see what else. I'm probably now falling off on him a little bit. So this is where we were, and this is where we are now. You can see the shadows have opened up, but this whole area right here is more consistent. It's more even lighting than it is on this side over here. Is that making sense to everyone what's going on? Okay, but I don't want the shadow. So exactly, so the subject should move up, but what's that going to do to my background? Which could be something I would like. So again, everybody over here really quick, just so you can see this. This is how I make moves really quickly. So it's just a very smart thing to think about. Hang on one second. So I can see my own shadow here right now. So this is where I'm standing. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's say 5. I can't tell you the number of times I've lost keys doing this. Yeah, that's his new mark. However, it doesn't end there. Hang on one second. I'm going to turn these lights back on. So my light is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Liam, is this pointing at you? And then my camera is the same. One, 2, 3, 5. And let's see what happens. So if I've done this right, my exposure should still be right on. Oh, this is me. Sorry. So double click on the card. Take a look at this. 237. I'm just going to cheat and do it with ISO. Can you jump back out real quick? What are the chances I'm going to leave these keys here for overnight? Pretty good, actually. Yeah, so again, this gets us back to where we were, but really quickly, right? So then again, this is now the difference in the two, is here, hard shadow, here, soft shadow, not on there at all. However, in lighting, one of the things that you want to consider or think about is most people don't really, the goal for me always in lighting has been, this is going to sound like Hallmark card-like, but you want the light to appear like it's coming from your subject, not that you're throwing it on them, right? I know, it sounds very Hallmark cardy. Jump back out there. I'm going to show you why I say this. So then the trick to this depends. I'm hoping that's not in my shot. Guys, be careful. There's a cord for our camera right over there. But so now what I've done is I've actually introduced a negative fill on the other side. I'm taking light away. So if we take a look at the two of these right now, in one of these cases, it's very obvious what's happening. The light here is all coming from this side. It's a light that's just thrown on him. I've got highlight on this side, shadow on this side, and more shadow on here. But now when I actually trim part of this off, this is almost like a vignette. And the light seems to be more coming from him. Again, if you have classic composition, if you have darker edges and a lighter background, you introduce the sense of depth. If you reverse those, you flatten things out. It's not that one is the way you should always be doing it. If you have the outer sides lighter and the darker center, you flatten things out. So if you want that Japanese print two-dimensional look, that's how you do your lighting. You do a reverse vignette. Does that sort of make sense? So we can play all of those kinds of games in this stuff right here. So this is actually a pretty good wrap. I sort of like this. This is how it would begin to go. But it just gives so much more than just, again, where we were before. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, so 2 more moves really quick. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's go here. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is where my light's going, so this needs to scooch back just a little bit. Don't step on the light meter. Yeah, leave it right there. That's going to be my lighting mark. Yeah, please. Thanks. Perfect. You can leave. Yeah, I mean, now you can just push it out. It won't be doing a whole lot anymore. Okay, art on the wall, right? So again, if I've done this right, he's still going to be, oh, what happened? Anyone? No, actually what this is probably now, so again, typically this would look like a sync speed issue, right? That I'd gone over 125th of a second or 200th of a second, whatever, and this was the second curtain, like clipping it, right? But what can also be happening here, I'm gonna try another one really quick just to make sure. What can also be happening is that the battery is dying, and so it doesn't have enough power to get the shutter to be timed correctly. So. Or not. The other thing is that it can actually be your camera strap in front of your lens. That's a classic. But anyway, the reason I wanted to show you this is that everybody thinks that if you want a gray background, you have to hang a gray background. So 239, yeah, again, let me pop this ISO up one more time really quickly. Yep, 248. And again, if I look at highlight on his face, right in here, again, at 249 on the highlight on his skin, I would say this is a little hot. And I would drop it back down that third. So the one right underneath it would be the correct one. Again, highlight on his forehead, 233. That's really in my sweet spot. But everybody thinks that you have to use a gray background to get gray. You don't. You just use fall off. This is now a solid gray. Look at this. I mean, this is actually below middle gray. Middle gray is 128. This is 117. Darker than middle gray, but it's a white background. So this whole idea about fall off lets you play. You can come in closer, you can pull back, you can do those sorts of things to really control the relationship between your foreground, your subject, and your background. Is this making sense to everyone, what's going on here? Okay, I have one last thing to show you here. And this whole thing needs to go away. So this can go back over there. If you don't mind doing that, Liam, I'm going to get rid of this. And you're good. No, I'm going to put you all the way back. All right, really quickly, just to give you an idea of the setup. So we're going to a completely different sort of setting right now. So instead of doing that big old Ellanchrome, I've actually got 11-inch reflector. It's actually, this will be trippy when you see this on the video. It's an 11-inch reflector. You can see right there. I'm going to try not to blind you. It's the inside of it is painted black. It's actually painted a gloss black. If you were really to do this a lot, you would want that to be a matte black. You've also got black cinefoil that's surrounding the outside. So the cinefoil, like before, is we're taking that away to eliminate the spill, right? We don't want it to be hitting the floor. We don't want it to be hitting the ceiling. We're trying to get our source, our lighting source, as small as we can get it. Why? It's exactly, I want contrast. Right? Size controls contrast. The smaller it is, the less wrap there is, the more contrasty it is. And let me get this back in place. Good enough. For 2, I want to shoot at 8. What do I need to do? I need more light or less light? More light. How much more? 4 to 1 is 5.6. 2 is f8. I need 2 stops more sensitivity. That would tell me that I can go from my 100 ISO to what? and see what it looks like. So it's a 253. I'm going to throw my exposure warning on. He's pretty nuked out. So oh wait, I'm still at 400 ISO. Oh, that's what I said I wanted to be, right? Okay, sorry, never mind, never mind. I'm going to lose a full stop off of this and just try it again. You ready? Sure. All right, so at 237, I'm going to add another third of that back. .243, that's correct. Yeah, I don't know why that's flagging. It shouldn't be. Highlight. 245, my max on this. So, I'm sorry, what were you saying, Liam? Yeah, the thing is that you can't adjust in things individually, so it's all RGB. So even if there's a channel, so for instance, if he had a pure red sweater on, and we were to shoot this, no matter what your exposure would be, you would always get this exposure warning would flag out because it's a pure red, and the red saturates to 255 no matter what you do. So anyway, that's the game that we're playing here. But this works good enough for me right here, so I'm happy with this sort of exposure right here. So then you look at this and you say, okay, well this is pretty contrasty, sort of like this, it's that kind of vibe, that sort of feeling, right? It's going to be easier to see this on my screen, so everybody come around here just to sort of see what's going on here. So nice good sharp shadow in here, but check this out. I am going to go to my adjustment menu part, and I'm simply going to, even though this is a neutral exposure, what time of day is this? 3:30.
That's what time it is right now.
Oh yeah, okay, well no, that's actually funny. So think about it. So this is the sun setting, right? So what time is it? 6 o'clock. It depends on the time of the year, right? So I'm going to go like, let's say 5-ish, right? Like today, the sun's going to set 2 hours later, so maybe 5:30, almost 6 o'clock, right? Sun's down pretty far, right? So what color's the sun when it's down on the horizon line, when it's beginning to set? Isn't it a whole lot warmer, right? So then we just take our little Kelvin slider and we warm this guy up. And all of a sudden, we've got daylight, Houston. So this gets even better. Check this out. Jump back there really quickly. Let me see how far I can get away with this. Because my light fall off is so strong here, again, I've got this thing pretty far away. So I'm going to meter where Liam is right now. And just, I can reset my ISO. So he's 8 right here, but when I come here like this and do this, this is a third of a stop more. Does that make sense? Liz, come here really quick. Have a stand right here. So stay like there-ish, and hold your white book out so we have something white that we can sort of check on. Although it's a little more, not quite white, but nonetheless. Perfect, just like that. So I've got her in front, but she's not blown out, right? The way you guys typically have this set up, your lights are like right here, so don't move. Does that make sense what's going on here? Yeah, hang on. Can somebody grab that power pack? Just turn it off and unplug it. I'm gonna carry the head up there. I want you then to carry the power pack. So just unplug the head. Yep. Good, and then you're going to bring that much closer to those guys. And let's just plug it in right here. You know you're good. It'll reach. Is this pointing at you guys? Yeah. A little high. jump out for just a second because I had metered him originally. So now I'm reading 16.2. What do I need to do? How much do I need to lose? That's how long it took me. How long did it take you? Huh? Yeah. Can you jump back in? All right, so everybody either crowd around, look at this, or look up at my screen right here. So here you can see normal exposure on both of them. Here you can see nuked out, but normal exposure in the background. All because of my fall off. Here, it's going to get worse. Jump back there really quick. I know I need you in now. Yeah, it's good enough. All right, slide out for just a second. Hey Aaron, can you just fire that radio on the camera? Or on the camera? 11.5, what do I need to do? It's more than one stop. 11.5, one stop gets me to 8.5. Jump back in. Watch your eyes. So now you can see the extreme between these has gotten even greater. So these are my 3 images right here. This is what I was when I started way back. Then the exposure difference between them two grows considerably right here. She was a third of a stop hotter than he was. We didn't measure this one, but I can measure this one right now. We'll see what he is and see what she is. But she's at least a stop and a half overexposed. So jump back out there really quickly. Let's just do a meter reading and make sure that's true. Let me just check, make sure Liam is where he was. Yeah, so he's 8, and then where were you? Good, perfect, right? 11.8, a stop and a half more in that amount of distance. But if I have my light back there, you can have people, you can have somebody up here. And the exposure difference between me and Liam would be half a stop maybe. Can you get away with that? Sure you can. A stop and a half, she's completely nuked out. You will never recover that skin tone. This is the biggest problem I see with you guys in your lighting. Your shit is right on top of what you're trying to light. So again, it's like, I'm gonna show you one last thing, and then we are gonna try to look at this is how I see so many of you guys lighting, is, oh here, hang on one second. You guys can come over. You don't need to hang out over there. What?
You were referring to us.
Yeah, yes, I was. I see this happen all the time. Not that wide of a space, right? I'm going to meter at this side over here. 22, and this side over here. 11.8. It's a stop and a third fall off. And you expect this to somehow look even or well lit or whatever. It's not possible. You've got to get these lights off. So, but again, there's consequences to that. When I move this light back here, so here, and let's just try it really quickly, just sort of. So I'll bring it back here. I've got to raise it up to keep it on the same line. What did I just do? I decreased my fall off, correct? But it's smaller, so does that mean what? Contrastier, right? So here, I'm reading 4.9 here, 4.8 here, a tenth of a stop. I went from a stop and 2/3 fall off, went it right here, to 1/10 of a fall off. This will look real. Contrastier, what can I do about that? Yeah, how can I make that a bigger light? I could, all of those things, think speed, think speed. Okay, this will be the last part that we'll get to in all of this. Can you move that chair for just a little bit? So I'm going to make this a larger light source. Everybody thinks that these things somehow are magic. All these things do is change the size of the light. That's all they do, right? But if I bring this thing up here like this, where's my light source? No, it's right here. And I go right back to the fall off issue. Right? So instead, I want to do it back here. But what's my problem when I do it back here? Look at the circle. Can everybody see the circle of light that's on this thing? Here, I'll come in even tighter. This is nowhere near as big as this thing is, right? What do? If I push this back, I start to run into more power issues, whatever. But yes, that would be one option. What else? Do you know how hard this is to hold this thing like this right now? Are you guys impressed? Anyway, this is what I would do. Can you hold that for just 1 second? How about that? Guys, believe me, this is a great trick. You're going to get jammed up. Every architect in the world builds houses that are exactly 1 foot too short for a photographer. So you are constantly against the wall, and your lights are constantly against the wall. And if you don't have enough room between that to have an umbrella or a softbox or something else like that, you strip this off and then you use a float of card in front of it like this, and you're much more compact. I mean, imagine the softbox, how big this softbox would have to be if this was a softbox. It would be out like this. I can get this thing all the way here. No, not quite there. There.
Could you also use barn doors?
Yeah, but that's just restricting my light. That would only fight what I'm trying to do here. Yeah. Questions about any of this? Are we good on this part? So again, the trick to this is, the advice that I give most people, so this is my rules for lighting. They have nothing to do with this class, but I'm just going to throw them out there. Number 1, always shoot against the light. All of you guys do Kodak shit. You put the light right here over your shoulder and you shoot like this. That's how you're all taught. It's wrong. If you want interesting light, you shoot against the light. Backlighting is your best friend. I'm just going to throw that out there. I've spent years making a lot of money doing this. And I can tell you right now, the people they look at people's work and say, well, fuck, that's just so boring, whatever. It's because it's a softbox that's slightly up to the right side with a fill card that's on the other side and maybe a background light, maybe a rim light. That's not enough. So anyway, that's the number one rule. Second rule, contrast is your friend. You can control stuff. So that means smaller lights, more point source. Think about that. But the biggest one of them all is get your lights the fuck away from your subjects. Get them as far off as you can get them. It will change everything about your lighting. Are we good? Okay. Let's call this, be back at 5 after, so 12 minutes, a hard 12, right? And if anybody can help me break down anything that's here in the studio, that would be greatly appreciated. These guys could then go home on time. And then we're going to be in the classroom for the rest.